Media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much for coming to today's media conference. As you all know, for the last 2 years, just over 2 years, 2.5 years, the government has been in active conversation with Sandals Resorts International, the Sandals Group, and we've been working towards the possibility of a project in Tobago. And as I've been at pains to point out, in the last 2.5 years, after every single meeting that the government has had with Sandals and its representatives, we have either had a open and live press conference where we've interfaced with members of the media and on some occasions members of the public as well, or we've issued media releases including photographs, videos, etc. I have with me here today the CEO of the Sandals Group, Mr. Gebhard Rainer, and someone who I've grown quite fond of as we've been working together over the past couple of years. We visited Tobago on a number of occasions. On the last occasion, it was himself and the Deputy Chairman of Sandals, Mr. Stuart, and myself that sat in this very room and interfaced with you, the members of the media, to give you an update, and in fact, on that occasion, to provide the public with a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding that was executed between the Sandals Group and the Government of Trinidad and Tobago in October 2017. So what we've just completed is another meeting where the Sandals Group has just met with the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, and myself, and we've also had the Deputy CEO with us as well, and then Mr. Rainer. So at this stage, I'd like to pass it over to the CEO of Sandals, Mr. Rainer, and then I will follow up afterwards. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for again having us here in Trinidad. It's always a pleasure coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, although today's meeting with you is an unfortunate announcement to be made from our side. We, as Sandals Resorts International, have made the decision to withdraw from the project. And the reason for the withdrawal from the project is, and I will elaborate a little bit into this, is really the constant and ongoing negative publicity and media coverage that we have received over the last 2 years, 2.5 years since the inception of the project, that for us as a global brand and for what we stand for in the Caribbean, not only in the Caribbean but internationally, it is taking on a dynamic that we are not willing to carry on any longer. We do have to concentrate our resources in areas where it does matter and where we feel that we are being, in general, by the public and by the media, being appreciated for what we stand for and what we do. Now, in saying this, I want to make a few things very, very clear. First and foremost, we as Sandals Resorts International, the chairman, Gordon Butch Stuart, the deputy chairman, Adam Stuart, myself as the CEO, are extremely grateful and thankful for the unwavered support, the consistent transparency and directness from Prime Minister Dr. Rowley and Minister Stuart Young throughout this process. From the beginning, there has never been a shadow of a doubt as to what the Prime Minister and the Minister are intending to do for the good of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically Tobago. A very transparent process. We are a company that works on the principles of transparency, on the principle of honesty, and on the principle of living and working and benefiting the communities that we are operating in. Second, I would like to make it also abundantly clear that since you all have had the opportunity to read the Memorandum of Understanding, the Memorandum of Understanding was signed as an indication of both parties indicating as to how they would like to proceed. We have not yet, and I repeat, we have not yet entered any direct negotiations on agreements. Hence, and therefore, there are no signed agreements that would create or have created any liability on either part. Either party has worked up until now in good faith and on their own risk which means there is no cost from our side, from Sandals, that would be passed on to the Trinidadian government. There are no costs involved. We have worked on our own risk. Any cost that we have accumulated, be it from designs, preliminary designs, any other expenses, are our own expenses. I also want to make sure that there is a clear understanding as to what the brand stands for and what the intention for the brand was here in Trinidad and Tobago. I think there was an unfortunate period of time with a lot of negativity and negative reporting that did not focus and highlight as to how we as a brand are operating and how we have been supporting the islands in the Caribbean and the impact an operation of a Sandals or a Beaches hotel in the local economy has through its linkages. Linkages meaning in a direct, an indirect, and an induced way as benefiting the economy through, and you can name it all, agriculture, transportation, taxis, the local hotels and accommodation sector that has benefited in every island that we are in and have gone into by us uplifting the overall segmentation of the market and rates in the country. So it is with great sadness, and it is very unfortunate that we had to take this step, but we believe that it's best at this point in time to withdraw Sandals from this project and focus our resources in the areas where we can be more effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, members of the media, public of Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, you all have heard the latest development. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and certainly on behalf of the government and this administration, to thank the Sandals Group for working with us and for all of the positive conversation and the learning experience we've had over the last 2.5 years. It's been indeed a pleasure working with Mr. Butch Stuart, with Adam, Mr. Rainer, and with the Sandals Group, as this government tried its very best and put forward its best foot and all of its efforts to bring a project, in particular to Tobago, that would have uplifted, in our view, the economies of not only Tobago, but also of Trinidad. And today, what we've heard is a loss of an opportunity due to the negativity that was put on the Sandals brand only by a handful of people. And I think that's a lesson for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, that a handful of people tainting a global international brand, which is the biggest global international brand, I think it's in the Fortune 500 of any Caribbean entity, is indeed a sad day and a disappointing day for us here in Trinidad and Tobago as a government. But I can't let the opportunity pass for thanking the group for all that they've done and all of the working relationship that we've developed over time, and who knows what the future will hold. On behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, what I can say is we refuse to stop hoping and to stop looking for opportunities for Tobago, and we will continue to do so. But what we've had today is a development where we've seen just that handful of people, and some with agendas, and some with personal agendas in particular, run one of the best brands of the Caribbean from Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular Tobago, where we would have been building, and we said consistently, a new project that would have taken all of the best that Sandals had to offer. And we were clear and consistent throughout. It was going to be a project where, like the Hilton in Trinidad and the Hyatt in Trinidad, we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, would build a hotel in accordance with the specifications of Sandals, and they would bring their brand and manage it for us, as they do successfully from the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, numerous hotels in Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, they're building another one, even Grenada, and all of the other Caribbean and CARICOM islands, that they've seen it fit to take their brand to, and more importantly, the people of those countries welcome them there with their arms open and embrace them. And we were bringing a different model. So an important point that has been made by Sandals, and I want to emphasize it, we did not get to the stage of commercial negotiations and discussions. We were about to begin that exchange. So all of the naysayers out there and all of the pontificators sitting in their armchairs who were saying, well, you'd give this to Sandals or you've given that to Sandals, etc., even though on every single occasion the government and Sandals made it very clear that we had not reached that stage of discussion of concessions, of negotiations over commercial terms, etc. And those were premature conversations. And to trust us, let's get the project to that stage. Today we've heard the disappointing announcement that they're at this stage, and Sandals has taken a decision not to invest any more time and effort and their resources in Tobago. So at this juncture, I'll invite a few questions from the media. Mr. Amar.
You're moving away from Tobago because of the bad press. But Tobago is a destination you like. And there are significant other locations in Tobago that rivals this particular one. As you know, this one was based on eco, significant amount of concern because of the Ramsar site and other issues. If there was another site in Tobago that gave you the same sort of ability, would you consider going there? Because it's Tobago is the destination, not the location by that particular water. And just a follow-up quickly. What was your projected financial contribution to the government of Trinidad and Tobago? Did you have a number? Because our finance minister quoted one in the parliament. I'd like to find out from you if there was one that was projected by you.
So this would be part of a negotiation that hasn't taken place yet. Both sides have expectations, as we have expressed our intent in the MOU. We have our own projections, the government has projections, but we have not sat down to negotiate, so I'm not willing to release a number here because it would just cause a debate that's fruitless. Similar to your question with regards to Tobago. Now let me be very clear here. Sandals Resorts International as an organization, as a company, we see tremendous potential in the tourism development of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically in this case of Tobago. For us, it is not a question at this point whether the site that is under debate or has been under debate versus other sites in Tobago would be the right choice, the wrong choice, would we go to somewhere else. The real issue here is that there is a ongoing prolonged debate about things that have not been discussed nor decided. We have given our statement with regards to the environmental impact study, environmental agency here, and the decision when it is forthcoming and when it would be forthcoming to abide by that. However, it seems the debate has taken over and made judgment prior to any official judgment having been made. So these are the kind of discussions that are very difficult to continue to prolong. It's very unusual, I can tell you that from my international experience, to get into public discussions about potential negotiations that, one, have not taken place, and two, typically are held in strictest confidence until you have concluded negotiations and then you start releasing as to what the commercial terms are. We've gone through, unfortunately, an experience here that sort of turned the whole thing around and leaves you in a position that makes it extremely difficult to continue. And that's where we are now. We love Trinidad and Tobago, let me be very clear here. We have had an incredible and unwavering support, as I mentioned before, from the Prime Minister and from Minister Young here as well. If it were only up to these two things, we probably would be halfway up with the buildings right now and would be able to provide Trinidad and Tobago with the positive impact that we've provided on so many islands.
Thank you very much. Let me just add to that. We have made it clear on every single occasion, including via press releases, including via me being on certain shows, that that question you just asked is premature. Because as Rainer said, Mr. Rainer has said, we did not even reach the stage of footprint of hotel and how it would be. But one thing that was made clear by the government and by Sandals from day one was that the environment would not only be respected, but it would be enhanced. So this conversation that today has scuttled the Sandals deal was a non-starter. And it was a false narrative because we did not reach there. Obviously, both parties, and in particular the Sandals brand, which has won numerous international awards for protecting and enhancing the environment, that was at the forefront of our mind. And we had begun all of the environmental studies, and we were going to be driven by that before deciding the footprint of the hotel and getting into the commercial terms. Judy.
Mr. Rainer, there's been negative publicity almost from the start when it was announced that Sandals might be coming to Tobago. What was the last straw for Sandals to say, this is enough, we're not going to go ahead with this again? And also, what is the possibility of you maybe considering Tobago in the future?
So the culmination, if you will, was a culmination of that whole period from the beginning to now when it starts percolating internationally into the press. I mean, in today's environment with the accessibility to social media and the instantaneous news reporting, obviously what is being reported here in Trinidad and Tobago percolates into international news media as well, which creates questions and news reports for us that are unnecessary in other areas and takes away from the positiveness and the positive impact we have in general. It's not that we are shying away from taking a stand or making statements. Let me be very clear here, but it is the consistent and persistent badgering, if I can use that term, of the same subjects over and over again, which are in our assessment without merit, because as Minister just said, when you're at a stage where you have not entered negotiations yet and no footprint has been agreed and decided on, you talk in circles. So it really is fruitless. Would we come back in the future to Trinidad and Tobago? Absolutely yes. It is a destination within the Caribbean. It is a country that is part of the Caribbean environment here, and it is a destination that from a tourism perspective is well worth developing as you go forward. However, you need to have the right environment to do so.
Mr. Young, you mentioned Initias. Are you willing to identify players involved?
Absolutely not. You all are very aware of who I speak and the handful of people that they are. Yes, Anthony. Jules, go ahead. Jules has the mic. Go on.
A couple of things I just want to have clarified. One, the situation that you have described in terms of publicity, negative publicity. As a global brand, that is something that I'm sure you've had those challenges in other markets. So what about this in particular has caused Sandals this concern to just withdraw from the project or talks for the project?
Well, in every other market that we have been in, including markets that we're not represented yet, but that we are looking at and that we promote ourselves in, we have always had the opportunity to justify ourselves and prove to the public as well as the news media as to the way we position ourselves and what the brand brings to a nation. Give you an example, we have invited a number of journalists out of Trinidad and Tobago, I think 3 or 4 times the different islands and different properties that we have in order to show you what Sandals does within those communities. However, it didn't change anything here. So at some point as an organization, and there's a commercial aspect to it, you make a decision as to where you allocate your resources, and that's what we have done.
In terms of the commercial side of it, are you in a position to say categorically that the issue of the brand management type arrangement the government was seeking was not a factor in this decision for Sandals to stop the talks for the project?
There was no factor that was anything to do with the government giving an indication in terms of either in relation to the brand or any commercial aspect, because as we said before, we haven't even started negotiating that yet. In the MOU, we signed an MOU because we came to the base of an understanding that we could actually move forward once we start negotiating.
Is that something that was of any concern to Sandals, that brand management proposal?
That, excuse me, can you?
Was that of any concern to Sandals at all, that brand management type arrangement that was being proposed? I don't know if that's the kind of arrangement in
No.
parts that we currently operate.
That was not a concern. That was actually a preferred and agreed option in our discussions that we, on that basis, would have wanted to move forward.
And Minister, to you, so you said that the government is not giving up in terms of hopes of opportunities for Tobago. So then what is the next step? Or what other organization or hotel chain you plan to approach?
I don't think you all, Jules, I don't think you all have learned the lesson of prematurity, you know. What we're saying and indicating as the elected government, even though we're disappointed here today, we're not going to just give up. From day one, and you all will recall, and let me just recount it briefly for you, how we got to the table with Sandals. Even before being the government, as the leader of the opposition, Dr. Rowley invited Mr. Stuart to come and take a look at Tobago. At no point in time did we indicate, when we then became the government, and he accepted the invitation to come and look at Tobago, did we indicate where the hotel should be based. Sandals looked at Tobago and identified the location that we've been discussing for the past couple of years. That was a Sandals decision supported by the government, and as I've said, the rest is history now as to how we discuss it. And so that is where it started, and we will continue with that further. We will continue to look and see if there are opportunities. Again, it is still premature at this stage, but we will see whether we can find other opportunities for Tobago, because we believe in Tobago. We believe in the destination Tobago. As the Sandals has not discounted or said that Tobago is not a good destination. In fact, they've just said the opposite. They said it continues to fit into the spectrum of long-term viewing of the Caribbean and Sandals destinations here, etc. But the negativity, the persistent negativity, even when they had offered to take members of the media to see the product, etc., and the lack of that positive media reporting on it, etc., it is bound to affect any brand. Think of it, use the analogy. If you have to go and visit someone, so you have to come and visit me at my home, and way in advance I'm broadcasting to you, well, I really don't want you to come here, you know. What you come in here for? Don't come here now, because I don't want you to park your car, you might park it on my lawn, etc., etc. And those types of things are the messages I'm broadcasting to you. You wouldn't want to come to my home. So, Wilson.
I frankly find it very difficult to believe that the comments of a few columnists or commentators would cause an international brand like Sandals to withdraw from Tobago. I find that very, very difficult to believe, because Sandals has faced negative press in Antigua, where a prime minister got up and lambasted the company for not paying its taxes and so on. Sandals has faced negative press in St. Lucia. Similar issues. Sandals, as far as I'm aware, is now building or seeking to build. There are some issues there. Another hotel in St. Lucia. So I am not buying the argument that a few negative comments from columnists has caused a 30-plus year company like Sandals to withdraw from the negotiation. But the real question to you, Mr. Young, is you referenced the fact that the Prime Minister invited the chairman of Sandals to have a look at Tobago. Would you not concede that that sole select approach to Sandals is part of the negative response here to the company? In other words, had the government, when it came
Mr. Wilson,
to office,
can you get to the question, please?
question is, had the government, when it came into office in September 2015, offered its international request for proposals with regard to Tobago, things may have turned out differently.
All right. Let me start by saying, quite frankly, it doesn't surprise me that you're saying that you don't accept it. What you're failing to understand is brand management. As I've started off once again today by saying, Sandals is an international brand. And any international brand, if you've worked with international brands, one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, is brand management and their reputation. So, and another thing you're failing to I think, put into the pot of consideration is the other instances of negative press that you've referred to are all post fact. So the government of Antigua, with a change in regime, is carrying on a conversation about Sandals hotels that are up and running and existing. And I think that's what Mr. Rainer has referred to. Never before in the history of Sandals, prior to, for the first time, a Sandals hotel being built, run, and that Sandals brand being put down permanently in a Caribbean island, has it attracted exactly this type of conversation. If you want to buy Coca-Cola, what is the international RFP for Coca-Cola? As we've said consistently, Sandals is the only Caribbean brand hotel chain that is of that level. It is the world's leading luxury all-inclusive brand. The government was clear even from opposition days that that is a brand that would uplift Tobago. We've seen it happen with Grenada. I didn't hear you talk about Grenada and all of the positives that took place with the Grenada. Allow me to finish, Mr. Wilson. Right? And what happened with Grenada? In fact, we were just in discussions, and the leading hotel, or one of the leading hotels in Grenada prior to Sandals, the Spice Island, they are the largest advocate, or the loudest advocate for the Sandals brand in Grenada now. And we were just having a laugh because they reached out to Sandals, and they're so enamored with Sandals now that in the employee awards last night, they asked Sandals to give them 2 prizes for their employees, 2 Sandals destinations. The conversation you see taking place in St. Lucia, I think Sandals has already 3 Sandals in St. Lucia, and they were looking to build a 4th. And they put that on hold now because of but there are 3 Sandals in St. Lucia. There were more than 1 in Antigua. Even with the economic crisis in Barbados recently, there was 1 Sandals there and they were constructing another. And it's working very, very smoothly. So today is a disappointing and an unfortunate day. And once again, you're looking for something that doesn't exist because there is no secrecy. Exactly the reason that has been given is the reason. So looking under the stones, looking under the rocks, looking everywhere, you said you find it hard to believe. That is the truth. That is why the Sandals brand has decided it is not going to pursue a project in Tobago because of the negativity that was being promulgated by a few and how that is affected by the brand.
On the issue of the Soul Select approach,
But I've just explained the Soul Select. The government was very clear. We want Sandals. We didn't want a Hilton. We didn't want a Hyatt. We didn't want a hedonism. We wanted Sandals. Throughout the Caribbean, every other Caribbean destination recognizes the value that Sandals brings. The backward linking, the rise in airlift, the agricultural benefits, the tour operator benefits. As I say, you said you just wrote about Grenada. You do a study of how Sandals single-handedly uplifted the economy of Grenada, which is similar to Tobago. So we were clear, and that's what we wanted. And as every step of the way, made the announcements, every step of the way, said we were meeting, every step of the way. This is the 2nd or 3rd live press interview I've done with Mr. Rainer. That's more than I've done with some of my cabinet colleagues. We've opened ourselves up for all questions, all discussions.
do you think part of the issue is that the government did not make the economic case for Sandals at all?
No. We've made it very, very clear what it is that turns Sandals away from Tobago.
Karen Koser-Phillip, TVT News. I don't know if Mr. Following up on Anthony's question, if Mr. Rainer can answer this, but You said that the constant badgering is one of the main reasons that Sandals has decided to pull out and the negative publicity. But surely Sandals has faced negative publicity in the past few months with regard to a sexual assault case being filed by a couple in New Jersey for $30 million.
Yeah, first of all, that's a very different type of media defense or brand defense that you do. But just to re-emphasize again, there's a big difference between dealing with negative feedback on the brand when you are not present in a country yet where you intend to potentially have a project versus dealing with press reports and negative press feedback in areas where you operate and deal with situations that you deal with in everyday business. So those are very different aspects. Of course, we deal constantly, like every other business does, with positive and negative press. That's the nature of the business, and that's the right of you as the press as well. You naturally have a right, but I believe that you also have an obligation to try to be objective and report on the truth. We can deal with the truth, we can deal with objectivity. We have no issue with that. But there is a point where if you have the opportunity from a commercial point of view, a business point of view, to say, I have a limit as far as I go before I withdraw because I am not present yet, as is the case in Tobago, you make a choice. In business, we don't have unlimited resources. We need to place our resources where it makes commercial sense. And we made a decision, our board made a decision, that it is time for us to move on and use our resources in places where we can make quicker and better commercial gain from it. So again, it has nothing to do with the lack of support from the government here. I really want to emphasize this again. They brought us into this project because we are the leading Caribbean all-inclusive luxury brand. As a matter of fact, we are the only Caribbean super brand that exists in the world. We have been consistently over the last 23 years been winning every award in this segment, in the all-inclusive segment, that you can win as an accolade. But we're not clapping ourselves on our own shoulders. All we can do is bring what we are and who we are to a place, offer the opportunity to work and develop in that place as the government desired to do so with us as partners. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Okay, last question.
Alina did not from the news. Just a question, I'm sorry if I'm not familiar with it. Have you ever planned or built upon an internationally protected wetland reserve before?
So I think you would have to go into detailed specifications as to what is protected and what is not protected. And this is why you do have a government agency here and you do have an environmental protection agency here that clearly works with people like us and brands like us under the guidance and as part of the government in order to determine where you can build and where you cannot build. It's the same in every other island. So we build where we are allowed to build, where we get approval for, and then we build within an environmental framework that allows us to respect the environment, have zero to little impact on the environment, and whenever possible, actually have a positive impact on the environment. And we do have environmental reports on a number of the islands that actually prove that from third parties, independent third parties, as to what we have contributed towards maintaining and protecting environments.
Once again, I just want to use the opportunity to point out that there was not going to be any building on the protected areas. And that's why from the word go, we engaged the environmental experts to advise us, etc. And we had reached a stage when we were looking at that to determine the footprint of where the resort would lie. As I said.
Just a quick follow-up. So why not prove the naysayers wrong? Any of your can answer.
I think we've put Mr. Rainer, I'd promised him, because they have to get the flight back to Jamaica, I promised him a short press conference. At the end of the day, as he has said, it's a commercial decision that they have to make. And the commercial decision and the limited resources that they have to utilize, they took a decision. It's not about proving the naysayers wrong. At the end of the day, why is it that the naysayers are provided with a louder platform than the positives of a project such as this? That's the question I have for you all today. We have a process and a procedure going on. I've said last question twice, but that's fine. But Sean has the mic. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, my concern, Mr. Rainer, and it is what it is, But Trinidad and Tobago has one of the most robust medias in the Caribbean, anywhere, probably more even than the developed countries. So I would ask for several things on that. Like, was there any failings, and each of you can answer the question, in your media relations? The basic thing to me is trustworthiness. You're looking at the environmental and the economic, Are we giving Sandals a whole bunch of tax breaks and losing our pristine mangrove spots to sum it up?
Okay, Sean, Mr. Douglas, let me just stop you there, because it is dawning on me that people may not be listening. We've said consistently throughout, from the start of the press conference, that we did not reach that stage of discussion, read the economics of the project. We did not reach the stage of discussion and negotiations with respect to the commercial terms. I've just answered a short while ago, and I've just made the point again when it came to the environment. It's the same thing. We keep repeating the same thing over and over and over and over, and you all keep looking for something that quite simply does not exist. So no matter how you ask the question over and over and in different forms, it's the same answer. We had not yet determined the footprint of the hotel. From the first conversation with Sandals, it was recognized that there were going to be environmental issues that needed to be taken on board from the word go, that would determine the footprint of the hotel, which means how it would be constructed, where it could be constructed, what needed to be done. At every step of the way, the EMA, the application was put in. That is the start of the process. To have discussions with the EMA would have been guided by the EMA, who are the body that are statutorily, legislatively charged with the responsibility of protecting the environment. This wasn't the government or Sandals looking to do anything outside of the ambit of the law. So again, those points don't arise, and we are happy for a robust and a free media. But I mean, it's being demonstrated. We are seeing the same thing over and over and over, and you're still looking for something that doesn't exist.
Minister, you've actually proven the point. The point is that these are basic issues. These are not subject to the fine-tuning here. The economy and environment, and the trade-off of one for the other. We've seen what happens in Cancun. These things, everybody said it's just a waiter or a chambermaid.
But the point I'm making is premature. We hadn't...
Actually destroyed
But
the towns there.
the point is,
So these are basics that we've got to get right from the beginning.
Well, we
the
won't
point
be
is that
proceeding.
the point is that both the government and Sandals do absolutely and very clearly understand what the basics are. The point here is we haven't gotten to the starting line to actually negotiate about what is acceptable for both parties to move forward. And we've been driving home that point for a very long period of time, but it somehow seems to be misunderstood, or it's not believed as to what we say, and we can only say what we know. I can only tell you the truth. I have no reason to hide anything. I have no reason to be not transparent. And the way we have gotten to know Minister Young and Prime Minister Rowley, they have been absolutely transparent and forward with us in explaining to us what the process is going to be once we get to that stage. I'm not going to go into specifics on the individual impact. It is a brand impact in general. I'm sure you understand from a brand management point of view, when you deal with the media and consistent and ongoing negative media reports, that there is an impact, because, as I said before, it does start percolating into the international media and has other effects that then affect other areas within the organization.
Okay, thank you all very much. We appreciate your time here this afternoon.
Thank you very much.